A powerful woman in a sharp blue suit known for uncompromising conservative politics. If you're thinking of Margaret Thatcher, you're not far off. But this is Sanae Takaichi, Japan's new leader, whose rise signals a major geopolitical shift for the nation and for Asia-Pacific. Her election as party leader is, however, the result of a deep existential crisis within the long-ruling Liberal Democratic Party, which is fighting itself against political fatigue and the rise of ultra-conservative challengers. Takaichi is making a bold promise to restore Japan's strength with an assertive foreign policy and a firm nationalist vision. But the reality is that the idea of a stable government in Japan is far gone, let alone reforming what seems to be a country headed to complete failure. This raises two critical questions that will define Japan's future. First, how will this new Japanese leadership navigate its tense relationship with China and its complex alliance with the United States? And most importantly, is the country's domestic foundation strong enough to support her objectives, or is it simply a house of cards ready to crumble? If you're interested in learning more about what happens beyond the headlines, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, because in our world, every move matters. Sanae Takaichi's ascent to the leadership of Japan's Liberal Democratic Party, or the LDP, is less about her political capital or the fact that she is the country's first female leader. It is more a consequence of the ruling party's existential struggle. The LDP, which has governed Japan almost continuously since 1955, is a coalition of competing internal and informal factions. The most powerful of these, the conservative Seiwakai faction, previously led by the late Shinzo Abe, has championed a nationalist and revisionist vision for Japan. This is in stark contrast to other factions, such as the Kochikai, led by former Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, or the one led by the more moderate conservative Shigeru Ishiba. Takaichi is a staunch disciple of Shinzo Abe's ideology and was propelled to victory by the Seiwakai's formidable organizational power, which controls a significant block of votes from Diet members in any leadership contest. The election of an ultra-conservative leader has been what some call a strategic necessity due to the pronounced political fatigue in Japan. A revolving door of LDP prime ministers has created a perception of instability, weakening public trust in the mainstream ruling party. And this allowed for smaller, more ideologically driven parties to gain traction. Notably, the populist and anti-globalist Senseito Party has successively peeled away disillusioned conservative voters by campaigning on nationalist themes that the LDP was perceived to have compromised on. So, the LDP's strategic calculus was therefore to consolidate its conservative base by elevating a figure who leaves no doubt about her ideological commitments. Takaichi's election is a direct response to this internal and external pressure, an attempt to reclaim a dormant Japanese nationalism and halt the party's slow electoral erosion by presenting an unapologetically right-wing platform, both at home and abroad. When it comes to foreign policy, the new leadership in Tokyo promises a significant recalibration of Japanese security policies. Sanae Takaichi has been an outspoken advocate for revising Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution, a clause that forbids Japan from maintaining an army. Her aim is to formalize the status of the Japanese self-defense forces as a conventional military. This move, for many years a goal of the LDP's conservative wing, would represent a definite break from the country's post-war pacifist doctrine. But also, she's a proponent of substantially increasing the defense budget, potentially beyond the NATO benchmark of 2% of the GDP, and developing counter-strike capabilities to deter regional threats. Her posture will inevitably reshape relationships with both rivals and allies. But for China, a Takaichi government signals a period of heightened tensions. Her unambiguous support for Taiwan and her firm stance on the sovereignty of the disputed Senkaku Islands will likely lead to more frequent diplomatic clashes and a greater military buildup in the East China Sea. On the other hand, her focus on economic security, which includes policies to onshore critical industries and reduce reliance on Chinese supply chains, further adds a geo-economic dimension to this very complex Sino-Japanese relationship. So, yes, Beijing will be watching carefully. For the United States, the new government in Tokyo is a sort of double-edged sword. Yes, Washington gains a more proactive and assertive ally, making Japan an even more vital anchor of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, or the Quad, a strategic bloc alongside the US, Australia, and India. A Takaichi-led Japan committed to a free and open Indo-Pacific is invaluable to the Quad's collective effort to provide a strategic counterweight to Beijing's regional ambitions and secure vital maritime lanes. But this new assertive could come at a cost. Tokyo's economic nationalism resonates with the protectionist sentiment that fueled the Trump tariffs on Japanese steel and aluminium. While the security alliance will definitely remain paramount, a more hawkish Japan focused on its own industrial and technological sovereignty may not align as smoothly with Trump, leading to disagreements on trade and technology transfer. So, Japan's strategy seeks some sort of symmetrical alignment, seeking a partnership of equals rather than a historic junior partner role. But there's a major catch. Tokyo's new assertive foreign policy rests on a volatile domestic foundation. Lacking a majority in both houses of parliament, gridlock has become the new normal. This new reality forces Tokyo into constant, often futile negotiations with opposition parties simply to pass routine budgets, let alone enact the bold reforms needed to address Japan's severe problems. This means that while Tokyo projects strength abroad, it faces inertia at home that threatens its long-term stability and capability. No wonder why the country will have its fifth prime minister in 5 years. The most critical challenge remains the demographic crisis. With one of the world's oldest populations and lowest birth rates, Japan faces a future of a shrinking workforce, a diminishing tax base, and unsustainable social security costs. This demographic decline acts as a powerful brake on economic growth and limits the human resources available for both industrial and military expansion. Takaichi has adopted a hardline stance on immigration, framing it as a threat to Japan's cultural identity and social order. And to combat the economic effects of a declining population, she advocates for a return to expansionary fiscal policies, emphasizing tax cuts, government spending, and economic stimulus. But opponents frame it as a mere temporary economic distraction that fails to address and may even aggravate Japan's long-term structural and fiscal unsustainability. After all, Japan has the world's largest public debt, exceeding 260% of its GDP. This huge fiscal burden severely restricts government spending and leaves the economy vulnerable to shifts in global interest rates. The economic stagnation of Japan's lost decades persists as important structural reforms in areas like the rigid labor market are consistently postponed. This combination of political paralysis, immense public debt, and demographic decline traps Tokyo in a vicious cycle where its inability to enact reforms only deepens the very crises undermining its own ambitions. So, the election of Sanae Takaichi signals a clear and decisive turn towards a more hawkish, nationalist foreign policy, ready to confront regional challenges and redefine its geopolitical standing. Japan has the ambition of a giant, but its projection of strength is built upon a domestic foundation riddled with internal fractures. The fundamental question is not whether its new leadership is bold enough, but whether its ideas are sustainable. After all, proximity to power deludes some into believing they wield it. It's just geopolitics. Do you think Japan's new assertive foreign policy can succeed, or will its severe internal problems ultimately undermine the country? Let us know in the comments below, and if you want to learn more about politics and international affairs, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.